For a while now, my girl Dorinthea has been in a non-ideal spot. As the meta moved into a minimal block favored atmosphere, on paper, Dorinthea should have been really good. In fact, she did play quite well into both versions of Briar. She could fatigue out Chane, and while she was unfavored against Viserai, she could pull it out as long as you didn't draw a handful of reds. But ultimately, the completely unwinnable matchup against Prism forced Dorinthea to fail to launch. And the popularity of Oldhim, yeah, you run up against the guy to save yourself from frustration and grab a cold one. On top of all of that, the community at large favoring the over-the-top Dorinthea versus the front pump Dorinthea caused a misconception of she's only good if your meta is bad, which I believe led many players to leave her at home. With the Uprising early meta, though, a couple factors have changed. Obviously, the drop of Glistening Steelblade in the two-player set is absolutely a thing. Living Legend changes in the drop of Uprising heroes like Fi and Dramai, one of which can't block for shiz, and the other with minions to chop down for counters. All of this makes me think that, at least for the early Uprising meta play, that my girl Dorinthea is back and ready to chop away. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, Flesh and Blood folks. Welcome back to Dice Commando and Go Again, a fabulous cast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and happy Friday. And you know what? If by chance you're headed down or out or up or whatever direction may be to you to LA for the Battle Hardened down there, good luck this weekend. Have a lot of fun. And you know what? Let us know how it goes. Really excited about that event. So let's be honest. It's been a while since we've talked Dorinthea into Classic Constructed. And just like I really think that OG Bravo is in a really strong spot right now, I think Dorinthea also is in a great spot. Now, we are sponsored here by our good friends over at FabDB. You guys know them. You guys love them. They're still, and they remain, the best resource we have on the interwebs for deck construction, for collection management, for going and looking at what everybody else is doing and getting those crazy ideas and sourcing everything. And that's just what a fantastic resource. When you're over there kind of investigating and playing around and trying to theory craft, consider upgrading your account to 1, support them, and 2, to unlock some pretty cool additional features, test draws, and stuff like that. So thanks to our friends over at FabBB for everything you do for the community and everything you do over here. So yeah, Dorinthea. But Andrew, you said she's bad into Prism. Prism's not gone yet. Completely fair. I get it. You're absolutely not wrong. That said, with the meta changes and, the Living Legend rotations outright, part of the reason Prism was good was the matchups and all that, right? So with the meta changes, I think that there's a lot more pressure on Prism potentially, right? Now, not to mention the fact that she's getting close to LL herself. Now, it'll be a while before she goes away. But with all that said, right, the field is different. We've already seen results from the RTN, the beginning of the RTN season, and Prism is not dominating by any means, right? So with the field shift, I think it's absolutely possible that Dorinthea is in a much better position, right? So let's go ahead and start with kind of the most obvious thing for Dorinthea, I think, which is Glistening Steelblade, right? So this came out of the 2-player set. This was unfortunately the one of in the 2-player set. I want to give a shout out to Josh the intern. I've got a couple copies from him, so I do have 3 now, right? Which has allowed me to really test Dorinthea. And I want to go ahead and throw up this little photo. This is what happened. We played CC a couple weeks ago. This is what happened with that. And you're like, okay, well, you're just, you're in a bad meta. You were in a bad matchup with a player. No, here's what happened in the next. So that was 4 counters into 5 counters, right? So Glistening Steelblade's pretty gross, right? As long as you can set, it's a combo-y type game. You can set it up with your Iron Song Determination. You put either one of those in Arsenal. Wait for the other one to come. You have a pump. Things get pretty gross. You put on 3 counters that turn most of the time, right? So, the best thing about this card is that it forces blocks, right? And that's kind of the whole point with Dorinthea is, you know, the argument out there always is like, well, once people learn how to block her, she's not good. And that's true, right? That's absolutely a good statement. But the thing with Glistening Steelblade is it forces blocks when they have to block. Because what you'll see a lot of times when you are playing Dorinthea into a good player, you will see a lot of times you end up putting a counter on, right? Because what they're doing is they're willing to take those hits, let you get the counter on so that they can do what they want to do because they have a big turn, and then they will block out and make you take the counters off, right? Glistening Steelblade, when you put that down, if that hits twice, you put on 3 counters that turn, right? So it forces them to block in that moment as opposed to being able to choose when they want you to block, right? It seems like it's a small change, but it's not, because it forces timing, right? And timing is a lot in these type of games, right? So I cannot say enough good things about this card. Again, I wish it wasn't a one of in the 2-player set, but this card's good, right? And I think it really changes a lot. Not to mention the fact that, you know, we've talked about, you know, Dramai. You go out there, you just start getting counters on, and you hit, guarantee you can keep your counter, and then you swing at her, right? Pop an ally, swing at her. Pop an ally, swing at her. Not bad. Not bad at all. All right, next I do want to talk about Dawnblade Resplendent. And you're like, well, but this is the one that goes with the new Dorinthea. That's only in Blitz. So I do think it's worth bringing both Dawnblades in a CC match. And yeah, card space is valuable. Not going to knock that at all. But into control matches, and especially into allies, Dawnblade Resplendent is, I think, the superior option, right? Because remember, you get to swing again with the blade if you hit. That's Dorinthea's ability. The difference being, and it's like, but you're coming for 2, you're coming through. Yeah, but if you're popping Ash Wings for 1, you don't care, right? And the trick here being that in the control matchup, in the ally matchup especially, but specifically let's just refer to a control matchup, right? Getting those counters on with Glistening Steelblade will carry for the whole game, right? So, because what you're going to see versus Oldhim and stuff, right, a lot is they'll just block for 400, right? That's kind of what he does. He's like, yeah, put a card on, I'll block on. You guys get it, right? So being able to get those counters on and have them stay, even though you're swinging for 2, then 3, maybe just 2, right, depending on if they block you out. But once you can manage to get those counters on, having them stay for the whole game, by the time you cycle your deck, because you're going to be playing slower, you can set up for that where you'll have the reprise or something so you can actually make it happen. Then they're dealing with a 3-4, and then they're dealing with a 5-6, right? And hopefully you can hit twice or whatever, but you see my point, right? The whole idea here is just to get the counters on and have them stay. And although the net efficiency is less, well, is it net? Gross efficiency? There we go. So the gross efficiency is less and that you're swinging for less. I get it. But having those counters to stay on and never having to worry about them drop off, I do believe is beneficial to her in the control matchup, right? And I think you guys can see what I'm going at. So what I kind of want to talk about to wrap us up here on why I think she's got a chance, right? Which is the whole point. I kind of want to address that, you know, she's only good if your meta is bad type of thing. I think a lot of people, you know, using the reason, I believe the reason a lot of people say that is because I do agree, right? She's very easy to shut down because her efficiency is built into her future, right? She has the ability to build, and if you can shut her down from building, then she loses really the value that a lot of other heroes have. That said, I think a lot of people are playing her wrong. I think a lot of people respond or depend way too much on the reprise type effects, which is why it's easy to shut her down, because part of knowing how to block, in many cases against Dorinthea, is actually translating to, in many cases, knowing not how to block, right? How to not block. That's the better way to say it, right? Knowing how to not block. Because, like, let's say they've got a card in their arsenal, you're pretty sure it's an Iron Song response. They swing for 3, you just don't block, right? That's like against Dorinthea 101, right? So you guys get it. And I agree with that, because reprise and not triggering it, if you as a Thea player, if your deck is only built around reprise, that sucks donkey balls if they know that, right? So mind blown, right? Don't rely on reprise alone. You'd actually be surprised looking at my deck list how few reprise cards I have in there, right? Or the cards offer a bonus or they offer what they do and then reprise as a bonus. So that's why I prefer the front pump. And part of the point of a front pump, say coming in Dawnblade for 8 or 9 with a card in Arsenal, forces really, really hard decisions on their point. And especially when we're looking at a meta with like people like Fi, or I do surprisingly well into Briar, because most of their stuff blocks for 2, or they just don't want to block because they need so many cards, right? It forces really hard decisions on their part, right? Let's say like Spoils into Dauntless into Swing for 8 with Goes Again. You've got something sitting in your arsenal, right? So they know you have Go Again, which doesn't matter for honestly, the Go Again doesn't matter in that case unless you hit, right? So they're going to try and stop your first drop, but then if you can slide through and they can't block for that, isn't it better for them in many cases to just not block and let you do what you want to do and then try and clap back? I think most cases they will. Warrior's Valor, Plow Through, Swing, 9 with an on-hit threat. You better block 12 if you're going to stop that. Otherwise, you're coming in, and actually with Plow Through, you'd be coming in for even more, right? So I really think that's what I prefer. I prefer the front pump Dorinthea. I think it puts the front pressure on and makes them make decisions. And sure, you guys will go back and forth and trade, but like I said earlier, a lot of times they'll let you get a counter on because they're trying to do something. But then if you can manage to keep that counter on, all of a sudden they hit the point where they're about at 8 or 9, and they can't let you do what you want to do anymore, and then they have to start blocking. And if they're a deck that doesn't want to block, a lot of times that's not good for them. So, and if you really go in and think about it and look at it, a lot of the heroes out there are in that situation, right? The weaknesses obviously are the control type decks, right? Bravo's pretty good into Dorinthea. Well, Guardian in general is pretty good in Dorinthea. You don't want to see Prism at all because, you have to hope to hit and then Spectra, and then you're not getting your 2 hits. And anyway, certainly challenges to her, but if you look at the meta as it is right now coming out of RTNs, it's pretty wide open. I think she's in a much, much better spot than she was. So I do think, to sum it up, I do think that Dorinthea is back. I think that people have a good chance of doing very well with her, making top cuts, and seeing where it goes from there. But it's not going to happen unless people try, people work on it, and people figure out how to get around some of the other problems we've got. So anyway, folks, thanks for tuning in. Let me know, do you agree? Do you disagree? Any Dorinthea purists out there? I know she's not overly popular these days, but I still love my girl, and I've been really excited about what I've been able to do with her since tricking out my deck with Steelblade, and it only required a couple edits, right? I actually dropped some stuff. I actually dropped Steelblade Supremacy in most cases for that. Actually, not in most cases. I traded it out for Steelblade Supremacy. I know that sounds crazy, but it's good. It's real good. So anyway, folks, thanks for tuning in. Let me know what you're thinking. Agree, disagree, like, dislike, whatever it is. Make sure that you're subscribing. If you ever feel like buying me a beer, it's right down there. Just go click that little thank you button. Much appreciated. I'll even drink it on the next cast for it. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. Have a great weekend, guys. Good luck again to anyone going to LA. Nothing else. Go Commando.